Hi guys, this is Lashette from Scarlet Moon Creations, and I am back. This is my mid-August recent reads, where I talk about the first half of the books I read in the month of August. As you know, there was a devastating fire that destroyed a big portion of Maui, which is more than just a vacation destination town. So, if you would like to help, there are various resources you can check out down below, not just with sending money, but also sending supplies. You can also share these links. Please be a helping hand as best you can. Thank you. I am definitely participating in one readathon, Garbaugust. This is created by Criminali. Links in the description. I'm not on any particular goal here, but I came across this thanks to Courtney at Tangible Reads, and since most of what I read is garbage, that felt like this is a good readathon, a low-key, unstressful one. The point is to read books that are considered in some way, shape, or form by someone somewhere to be trash books. I read romance, which is like the epitome of trash in the literature world, apparently. I also very much like as a subgenre paranormal romance. So if you think romance is trash, paranormal romance is the garbage of the trash, the bottom of the bad, the food waste, the garbage that has deteriorated to muck and goo that drips out. Anyway, so let's get into the books. I personally don't consider anything I read to be trash, but I do know many others do. So that's the point. I think taking that derogatory language and turning it on its head, even taking it back and owning it in a way. And I appreciate that. I'm also sort of kind of attempting to participate in the autumn Equinox magical readathon. As usual, I don't know what prompts I'm doing for what. So that I'll go over at the end of the month and my monthly wrap up where I give you the stats and everything. So look for that in the next video. So the first book I finished in the month of August that was trash, because manga are also not really reading anyway. So Orange Volume 2 by Ichigo Takano. I almost mixed up all of those letters. But I read Orange Volume 1 last year, and I finally sat down to read this. I'm happy with the way this ended. Before I get into my thoughts and whatnot, this is a manga, a slice of life manga. It's 7C says it's teen. The premise or the story or whatever is the fact that there is a young lady, I think they're in high school. Anyway, she's a teenager, and there's a kid, a boy, who transfers to her school, and she's immediately taken with him. And but she's also shy. She has a really cool friend group. Cool as in like they're all good friends, right? And they support each other, and they have different personalities, but still like have fun or whatever. Not that they're the most popular or anything like that. But she's the shy little wallflower in the group, and they're all of her friends kind of like this new guy in some way, shape, or form. Like they want to be friends with him and whatnot. But anyway, so she has a little crush going on with the new guy. She doesn't want to say anything. And then one day she gets a letter in the mail from herself in the future. And it's telling her that she has to change some things that are going to happen because one of her friends will die otherwise. And at first she's not believing this letter, but then because it's not like a one pager, guys. Her future self sent her an essay basically, or diary entries, something like that. So her future self told her like stuff that's gonna come up and what they think she should do instead. And like I said, at first she's like, this is weird, as most of us would. But then as things start coming true, she starts realizing, oh crap, and now she's like, she doesn't know what to do other than attempt to follow the letter but keep it secretive. I don't know how to feel about how, because content trigger warnings, suicidal ideation and suicidal thoughts and conversations about taking one's life, and a character that a tertiary character apparently does do so. Like, talking about this content is sort of spoilery, but not really. I think from volume 1 I pretty much knew who we were talking about, and then it became very clear. I don't know exactly how I feel about how this was used as, maybe it was used as a plot device. I feel like I'm not educated enough about how stories are put together purposefully, paired with the idea of it, you know, this kind of like voice from the future, from your future self, the timelines changing and overlapping. I'm a sci-fi fan. Star Trek, Star Wars, I don't like one more than the other. That's not true, but anyway, the point is, I am completely familiar with the whole space-time continuum, and changing the past will change the future, and overlapping timelines and all of that stuff. So we don't get like a hardcore explanation for how that works or how this worked in the story. It's just the idea of that paired with this, you know, someone's mental health being, someone struggling with their mental health to the point where they are very strongly several times considering taking their own life. It made for an interesting story, but it feels, especially with the way this ended, which was kind of like a happy ending, it feels like it didn't take this topic seriously enough. Not that I super rated it down for that, but I did a little bit. This focuses more on the friendship, their relationships, and how much they are willing to do for each other and sacrifice for each other, and learning about themselves and things like that. So I enjoyed that. They have a little found family here, even though they have their own families. In this volume, we also get more about the new guy and like kind of his thoughts in one chapter, which was weird. Why he was going through what he was going through to an extent, or what some of the triggers were, and that kind of thing. I think I appreciated that, even though it was just like randomly inserted. We don't get everyone's point of view in this book in either volume, but his was just, here's a chapter kind of flashbacky of like everything that's happened so far from his point of view. That was a little odd. I know there are 2 more volumes of this, not these complete collections, but like individual volumes that are maybe 200 pages. And I know at least one other booktuber who has read the series, and they read the next one and was like, they didn't think it was necessary. So I'm not sure if I'm going to continue. This was good. It was interesting, and I like the characters. I just feel a little iffy about why this was done this way. But I don't want to lean into, oh, we shouldn't be talking about these things. And I can't say it was lighthearted, but it wasn't as deep or as dark as I figure maybe it could have been. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, I rated it 3.5 stars. I'm gonna say I didn't read the extra story at the end. It wasn't related to this. It wasn't related to Orange or any of those characters. It was another like manga story that was just new. It looked a whole lot more lighthearted, and after everything we went through with Orange, I was like, I don't know, Haruyo astronaut. I just wasn't interested. So anyway, I can't say I won't read those next 2 volumes. I just don't like the story. Feels complete. So why? Next, another trashy manga, especially this series. Like, is it serious? No. And it's super popular, so of course it's like mainstream, so this has to be Garbaugust. Spy Family, this is volume number 7, and we're picking up after the cliffhanger of at the end of volume number 6. Super popular series. We all know I'm almost done with all of the volumes that are currently out and available for translation, but this is about a spy named Twilight, works for his country, who is kind of sort of not at war yet with another country, and he's just finished one big mission and he's been given another. He needs to get close to someone in the other country who is high ranking, but the only way to do that is to approach him via this very elite school for children. Fortunately, Twilight is a single man. So what he has to do is get a daughter, which he does from an orphanage, not knowing that said daughter is also a telepath. So he can read minds or hear thoughts or whatever, right? Then he finds out they only allow complete families to have their kids entered into the school, so he has to find a wife, and he finds Yor, who is working at as a secretary or something like that, but unknowns to him, Yor is an assassin. Yor also unaware about Twilight being a spy. They tell you how that comes about in the first book, but he says, he lets her know he's trying to get his daughter Anya into this elite school. Would she be willing to play the part of the mother? And she has to live with them and all of that stuff, and she's like, okay, right? So for her own reasons, but again, the 2 adults are not aware of everyone's abilities or secret identities. Anya, who is 5, is aware that her father is a spy and her mother is an assassin, but she's only 5 and does not have that life experience. So she wants to keep this family together, but she doesn't always understand her parents' motivations for doing things. She just does her best to help them so that the family can stay together because she is an orphan and she wants a family. It is funny and fun. There are action scenes, but there also are these poignant moments. You feel for them. You want to know what's going on with this mission, like in the country. There's a secret service. Why do these two countries have these issues? Blah, 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 blah. I rated this volume 3.5. Like I said, we do pick up where the cliffhanger at the end of the previous volume, but what comes from that is kind of a little lackluster. And then we have various chapters that are not following the same plot thread. So I wouldn't say this is filler exactly, but I've mentioned it before. The volumes where the chapters have different, seemingly random plots, I like a little bit less. And it's not that they are less than, it's just that the others where, you know, the plot stretches multiple chapters are more exciting to me. We get a little bit more about the what is it? What the hell is it? The brother, yours brother, and Anya and her experiences at the school. There's a random chapter about this tech guy who helps Twilight in the background, and then they're going on a cruise or something like that. Again, not bad, but not amazing. Still gonna continue because I do enjoy it. There's just so many great parts of this. Next up, finally, I think August has become the month I read the Priest series, because the next book I finished was Priest by Sierra Simone. This is book 1 in the Priest series, which is basically a trilogy. I think technically I read Midnight Mass as well, because the ebook edition of Priest that I read did have a story in it. So this is a somewhat taboo romance erotica right in that Garbaugust lane, taking up all the space. Right. So we have a priest. I read book 2 actually in July. Now I don't remember. Okay, so anyway, I read book 2 back in July because that was the first book I was able to get my hands on, and Courtney from Tangible Reads was doing a July read along of this series. We saw how that went. Anyway, so we have a priest who is leading his parish, or whatever you call it, the church. Tyler is his name. And one day, a woman comes into the confessional with him and kind of, in my opinion, tells this very convoluted, not very detailed though story, or not story, but like she gives her confession, but it's full of vague things. So again, my opinion, she winds up doing this several times, and Tyler is like, huh, this is interesting, this is different. He doesn't get a lot of people coming into confession, which is understandable. I did not know that, I forget what he called it, but more modern churches, as we're going to talk about Catholic Church here, more modern churches have like this open room. Like, it's not that old-fashioned wooden confessional booth, which is the only thing I've been in, so that was different, right? I'm like, oh, what would confession be like if can see the priest and they can see you, and you can have like an actual heart-to-heart discussion. But I'm not Catholic, so anymore. Anyway, so this one day they wind up actually seeing each other, because that's why I brought up the differences, the different types of confessional spaces now, because Tyler has been trying to upgrade the church and they're trying to get money in and all of that stuff, and he's trying to change how confession is done and somewhat modernize the church that has already been through a big scandal with their previous priest. So, right, he invites the woman to step outside the confessional and talk to him face to face, and then he looks at her, he's like, damn, she's hot. And the story goes from there. She is like this woman with a past, or a present. She's an exotic dancer for a very elite club, but she used to be this socialite. She ran away from that and wound up here, and is still not comfortable with her life and is trying to figure that out. So yeah, she starts getting more involved in the church. He's falling for her, and then she's falling for him. But he's a priest, and again, of a church that had recently dealt with a scandal already. So he's trying to improve the church and get, have the parish or whatever trust him and all of that stuff, but struggling with this relationship. Now, how would I rate this? I rated it 2 stars. I think I'm just going into I'm not going to sugarcoat it era. And that's for me. Like, I'm not saying this was bad. It wasn't. It was okay. I liked Sinner Book 2 with his older brother, Sean, better than this. I don't mind, like, lust at first sight or whatever, but it was really early on when he was talking about he loves her, and I'm like, but why? It wasn't showing me that, so I wasn't believing the closeness of their relationship. I wasn't believing how desperate they were for each other, and how the extent to which he was agonizing over what he should do, which was kind of the point. Tyler was interesting. His friend Jordan was a fascinating, like, tertiary background character, because it doesn't matter what religion or spiritual practice you have. Like, if you believe in, like, some other power or higher power spiritually, that may have an effect on your life. Those people that you see that seem to be so connected, so plugged into that, and not in a fake way, like, this is not an act, always are fascinating, and it's somewhat envious. Someone that you usually envy, to be that plugged in, if you believe in these things. So super fascinating. I was interested to see, like, how is this going to work out. I didn't find Homegirl all that interesting. Like, I get her life was the way it was, but there was a lot of privilege with her that just, I guess maybe with my background, it just wasn't working for me. Like I said, there was a lot of good reflections on, like, God, Catholicism, how people interpret the Bible in various ways, various parts of the Bible, people's relationship with God and then with sin and what is a sin, what isn't. Like some of the sermons that he gives, we get, truncated or bits and pieces of Tyler's, and were really interesting. Again, I'm a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, I'm just not Catholic. I think that Poppy, that was her name, Poppy and Tyler had good sexual chemistry, and I could believe they had romantic chemistry if I saw more of it, but I'm a little skeptical even now. It was to the point where I suspected she was like a plant, like somebody hired her or told her to go there to seduce him slowly to fuck up his whole thing. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then it didn't, and I was like, this. So like something was off for me. Where, yeah. Another thing was all of the, so the sex scenes come in fairly relatively early, right? We got all types of sin, sexual sin happening here. What is it? I forget the word, but like I had heard about them fucking on the altar years ago, so I knew that was gonna happen. But like, there's all kinds of like, that type of thing, and I was just like, every time they had sex, and I get the man is a priest and like this is his thing. He does enjoy being a priest. He likes his religion, what it is, not what man has twisted it to become, and he's open-minded and things like that. But like, he's really into it, so these things flow through his head. I'm like, why are we naming the parts of the altar and the church in your mind and comparing her to various people in the Bible or various tools? I was just like, I got so sick of the Catholic and church similes and metaphors every time they had sex. I was like, can we just not? Because I don't want to. Like, very early on, and it kept coming, and I was just like, please. I don't want to read these sex scenes anymore because of that. I just... So 2 stars. It was okay. So far, the least liked of the series. And like I said, I think Midnight Mass was at the end of this. Okay, maybe I didn't read Midnight Mass. There was a thing, like, novella at the end of mine that was about the 2 of them getting married. It was like the day before their wedding. So maybe that wasn't Midnight Mass. Or the night before their wedding, it was snowing. They both were supposed to be separate, but were still running errands, and they wind up being at the church at the same time, and there was a snowstorm and they get stuck. If that's not Midnight Mass, let me know down below and I'll look for Midnight Mass. I just, like, looking at Storygraph and the description doesn't really tell me what Midnight Mass is about. But it is a novella in the series, and I am almost done with Saint, which is the last full novel. So I need to know. Anyway, next, I want to talk about The Delicacy by James Albin. This is a comic. This, again, garbage. How dare I read these visual things, right? This was the July book, I think, for the Realm of Comics book club. We were behind on the live shows or whatever, so I was like, I actually read this digitally, but I requested a physical copy so I could hold it up and not have to edit in the book cover. Aren't I clever? I gave this 4 stars. This is about we're following 2 brothers who live in like the Scottish countryside on a farm with their older mother and or elderly mother, aging mother. I don't know actually, but they're both adults, and one of the brothers loves working on the farm, working with his hands and the earth and the animals and plants and stuff. The other one works at a restaurant that's local that doesn't really see very many customers. That brother is always thinking about going to a big city or leaving town, whatever. Someone comes one day, a solicitor, to tell them that their aunt, the mother's sister, has passed away and she's left everything to the sons. Now, the mother and her sister are kind of estranged. Mom's like, those people live in the city people are crazy, you know, the air is dirty, and y'all know, those, the usual prejudices or whatever, right? There's a big chunk of money and land and a house that is I guess, in the English countryside. So the brothers are sort of interested, one in particular, so they head on over and they find this house and this land, and the one brother's like, oh my god, we can farm. And the other brother's like, oh, we can farm and we can start a restaurant. So they do the restaurant in London. Things are not going great because, you know, they had ideas of how this would work, but it's the big city, it doesn't quite work that easily, and they don't have that much money. One brother finds these weird mushrooms on the land, and they start adding it to the food, which starts bringing in so many customers that they blow up. Like, their whole operation becomes huge, and the story continues from there. I did not know what to expect at any point, and this was fascinating. I was in here, like, not literally, on my phone. I was like, okay, so it doesn't quite have the same impact, but that's what I was doing. The art style, I don't love it, but I feel like it really fits. I did not check, but this feels very French. James Albin isn't a writer and illustrator from Scotland, so he did draw this. But it's a very, I want to say traditional and French, though that could be wrong, obviously. I just, in my head, attribute this kind of painting style to French masters, I guess. But yeah, that, like, in general, like, European masters, painting style, it kind of reminds me of, like, Starry Night, and there's another style where it's, like, actually people, but I can't remember. I'm not good at remembering painting styles like that. So I wasn't thrown off, and somehow it conveys the emotions of the characters and the scenes so well, particularly when things get really intense, whether it's like stuff that's happening very fastly, like the ending, things started going and I was like, oh, like the mom's displeasure. Here we go. There she is. Thank you, sir. We have no need for their filthy money, right? The snootiness of several of the characters later on. Like this dude? Oh, yes. Like, I could totally picture him in my head. This lady. It was so great. Also, I feel like it did the food very well, which you wouldn't think. But it set the tone. Like, if this is outside of this, no, absolutely not. But it wasn't, and it did a very good job. I did rate this 4 stars. I have to say, there is a horror element, which I wasn't expecting, but I should have. Like, we're talking about Ashley and Bree, host of the realm of comics. So, no horror? Who are they? Right? Would it be a Realm of Comics book club pick if it didn't have horror? The last book I'm going to talk about now is Spy Family Volume 8. We're continuing this series by Tetsuya Endo. And again, we have a spy who has a fake wife with a secret identity as an assassin and a fake daughter with a secret identity as a telepath. And in this one, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Y'all. So the last chapter of volume 7 starts a huge plot line which goes through the entirety of this issue. So you see what I'm saying? And it's a big one. We haven't had one this big. It's a little bit more focused on Yor and her skills as an assassin, but also her thoughts and feelings about this family that she's a part of, and how, you know, they fit into her life, and does she want to continue being an assassin or what? There's a lot of parallels that she makes between herself and another woman that she meets here, and we also get another piece of the puzzle to this tension between these two countries and the things that are going on behind the scenes, both politically and on a criminal standpoint. So I was at the edge of my seat. Anya was her best self. It was nice getting like a whole volume mostly focused on Yor, not just her point of view, but how, you know, Twilight and Anya both see her in their lives. So, like I said, absolutely fascinating. I've got one more volume, and you will hear about it in my next recent read, where I wrap up the month and all of the books that I read with my stats. I may talk about the Magical Readathon, Autumn Equinox edition, what books fit for which prompts, and my career, and the other books that I've read this month. Guys, wish me luck because I'm struggling. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you're new, hit the notification bell so you know when the next video is coming. Also, just a reminder that there are links in the description to help those affected by the wildfire in Maui, those displaced by them as well. So look for that. Leave me a knife emoji in the comments down below. That will cover Spy Family and the delicacy. Guys, I have links in the description to everything I've talked about, including my Storygraph and Goodreads if you'd like to be my friend on either or both of those. You can also find a 10% off discount code to my Etsy shop where I make all natural bath and body products and offer tarot and oracle card readings. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.